Habaragani, my brothers and sisters. This is a Black Focus Radio news drop. I hope you're listening to the show. Every now and then I will be doing these news drops on issues that are important that just simply can't wait on the show. So here's one of the first of many going forward. By the way, shout out to my brother who is doing yeoman's work in Louisiana, Gary Chambers. If you all are not following this brother and listening to what he has to say, I would advise you to do so. This is a young man who is making waves, and there are a lot of people who don't like it. So, with that being said, let's talk a little bit about some things that are going on. If you've been following Black Focus Radio, and as a matter of fact, if you listened to the last show, I talked about the money that and how we can, as black people, make some significant changes as it relates to white Republicans. Let me talk about that. So I'm going to give you some numbers here, all right? Because I was just curious. And I've been talking about this for a while, and as a matter of fact, there's an upcoming book that's going to be about this very issue. So I decided, after listening to and following what was going on in Louisiana with the newly elected Calvin Duncan, I decided to do some numbers. Now, by the way, if you don't know what's going on in Louisiana with Calvin Duncan, you need to wake up. Calvin Duncan was a man who was convicted of murder on flimsy evidence, and come to find out that he was always innocent. He was eventually exonerated, and he got out and was then decided that he was going to run for the local clerk's office. Now, Calvin Duncan he fulfilled a dream of his of being an attorney, and while he was in prison, he was considered the jailhouse attorney, helping other young inmates with their cases. Once he was exonerated and free, he ran for office. He won by 68% of the New Orleans parish. 68%. And the governor and the state legislature decided to pass a bill that would keep him from taking office. In other words, they basically eliminated the position that he won. Remember, 68% of the people in New Orleans and in that area voted for Calvin Duncan. And Calvin Duncan's motivation was in running was the fact that he didn't want what happened to him happen to anyone else, and that particular clerk's office ran interference with his particular case. Remember, he won by 68%. Now, I've been following these hearings for the longest, and clearly it has race and race and race to do with it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't need to delineate to many of you all, particularly those of you who live in Louisiana, the history of race in Louisiana. Gary Chambers has done a fantastic job of letting us know what's going on in Louisiana. He talks about how they wanted to move the zoo from the black part of the neighborhood to the white part of the neighborhood. I could go on and on and on. I've really been following this brother, and I'm telling you, the brother is on point. So I decided, I've been talking about this for years. I've been saying for the longest that how do you affect the white man as a black person, as a black community? How do you affect them? Because there's an old saying that if you affect a man's purse, you can affect their attitudes. Okay? Now you may know where I'm going with this, because we have to affect the man's purse. Okay? So let me just give you a quick story. And I'm not a preacher by any stretch of the imagination. But I do want to use an analogy. It's called worshiping the gods of a beaten enemy. Think about the children of Israel. When they were exonerated, when they left the clutches of Pharaoh, they got out into the wilderness. They didn't appreciate what God had done for them. And what did they do? They started worshiping the gods of a beaten enemy. That God was, at that time, a golden calf. When Moses came down from the mount, he was appalled. He was angry. And many of those were destroyed. Now, think about it from this perspective. Black people fought and died during Jim Crow, Black Codes, 60s, Civil Rights era. They began to worship the gods of a beaten enemy. Now, what is that God today? The God today is the almighty dollar. I remember in the mid 70s when the stock market crashed and white people were jumping out of windows because they had lost everything in the stock market? Because money is their God. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, don't get me wrong. We all need money to survive. But when it gets to the point where it is controlling you, then therein lies the problems. We see that right now going on in the White House. Therein lies the problem. So, I decided to do a little research before I put this little piece together. Okay? I wanted to look at some things because, as I've said, I've been talking about this for a while. And I'm going to give you, before I give you the points, I want to give you the history. Because I was going through some old hard drives that I have, and I ran across some pictures of the Little Rock Nine when they came back to Little Rock a few years ago. Okay? And by the way, shout out to Little Rock Central, which I am a product of that wonderful, wonderful school that now Sarah Huckabee Sanders is trying to destroy. And I was taking pictures, and I remember the conversation that I personally had with one of the Little Rock Nine, Terrence Roberts. And I asked him, I said, what do you think about today and what you all did? He said to me, and I'm paraphrasing, that it looks like all that we tried to accomplish was for nothing. That's Terrence Roberts, one of the Little Rock Nine. By the way, I grew up with a lot of the Little Rock Nine because I grew up, many of them lived on Marshall and Wolf, and if you know anything about Little Rock, I grew up on Schiller Street, and many of their relatives as well. So I decided to do a little research here. Let me read this to you right now. Here it says, about 75% of Freedom Riders were between the ages 18 and 30. Now you're probably asking, now why am I bringing this up? Just hang on, hold your horses. With a significant majority being college students. While there is no single official average age cited for all participants, specific data on representative groups, and individual riders highlight the movement's youth-led nature. Let me say that again. Okay? Specific data on representative groups and individual riders highlights the movement's youth-led nature. There's more. Hang on, there's more. I told to do this, I wanted, because it is so important because of what is going on in this country right now. Age distribution, 1961 riders. In a demographic analysis of 260 participants, the largest age bracket was 20 to 24 years old, followed by those under 20. Hello? Are y'all hearing me yet? Student influence, most riders were recruited through the student-led organization, SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and the Nashville Student Movement. Notice, Both of those organizations had the word student in it. Notable ages of some of the key figures. This is going to blow you away. This is going to blow you away. Hezekiah Watkins, the youngest recorded freedom rider, was arrested at just age 13 years of age in Mississippi. 13. Okay. Charles Pearson, the youngest member of the original 13 riders, was only age 18. John Lewis, a primary leader of the movement, age 21. Joan Tromper Mulholland, a high-profile white activist who joined at 19. Hello? Now, why am I saying that? Because if you listen to Black Focus Radio, I've asked the question, do young people today have the conscience and convictions of their ancestors? And my answer to you right now is no, they don't. And therein lies our problem. Okay? What was the most powerful weapon used in the 60s? Do y'all know? Was it the marches? Was it the speeches? No. It was the economic boycotts. The bus boycott in Montgomery. It was the sit-ins at Woolworths across the South. And they all were young people. They all said, we have had enough. And the question we got to ask our young people today is, have you had enough? Now, let me go back to why I decided to do this Black Focus Radio news drop today. The story of Calvin Duncan bothers me on so many grounds. It should bother you. It really should bother any official who believes in democracy. But what we are beginning to understand is that white people are telling us, particularly in red states, that democracy depends on who it's applied to. Okay? So, the Louisiana legislature decided that they were going to wipe out the seat of Calvin Duncan. Boy, that really bothers me. So, what can we do about it? I know that's what you're asking. So, well, Dave, what can we do? What can we do? You see, you don't understand the power that you have. The reason I told you about those freedom riders and their ages is because that's our power. And they know it's our power, and that's why they've done everything they could to destroy the mindset of those young people. Sorry, rap music and rappers, but you have done yeoman's work for them to destroy and help destroy the minds of our young people. Gangster rap, and this is not a piece about gangster rap, but I'm just saying we used to call the television the tell lies vision. Because for a long time, it was the media who told all kinds of lies about black people. Hello? It was the media. What is rap music? It's the media. Did you know that 80% of the recording industry is owned by white men? And did you know that 75% of those owners are Jewish? The same Jewish people that won't let their children listen to that gangster rap? Hello? But again, I'm sorry. Let me get back to what I wanted to be specific about. Because I found it interesting that I watched a piece by Gary Chambers yesterday, and so many people that I don't even know responded to my post about it. And the post I made basically was that it's time to talk to those young people at LSU. Now you're saying, well, why should the young people at LSU be part of this? I'm going to tell you. Let me throw some numbers at you. Okay? For fiscal year 2025, LSU's football and basketball programs generated a combined total of $132.9 million in revenue. Football remains the primary financial engine for the athletic department, contributing significantly more than the basketball programs combined. That means men and women's basketball. Football alone at LSU generated $117 million and a half dollars. Okay? Basketball generated $12.8 million. Women's basketball generated $2.5 million. Okay? Combined, that's $132,938,494. Wow. Now, we know for a fact that the majority of those young black athletes, you heard me, were young black athletes. Exactly. So when I saw that a state representative, who, by the way, is the voice of LSU, call and channel George Wallace, I was appalled. Now, the question we have to ask LSU and the SEC overall is, do we want someone who is channeling George Wallace, segregation now, segregation forever? Y'all, if you don't know what he said, go out and look it up. This is a state representative who helped lead the charge against Calvin Duncan. My question to young black men and women who are generating billions of dollars for these schools: do you believe in consciousness over cash? Because now I know what people are saying. Well, you know, they can't really do anything now because they making all this NIL money. Well, you should have been making money years ago. And by the way, you do realize that there is closet legislation that is being pushed in Washington, D.C. to limit the money that you can earn in the NIL. Although it is your body that is out there running up and down those courts. It is your body that is being broken up. It is your body that's going to be living with lifelong injuries after you stop playing. All of y'all are not going to go pro. Okay? But guess what? That broken leg, those ACLs, that concussion that you had, all of that stuff is going to manifest itself when you get to my age. Now, I will tell you, I played small college football. I'm sitting here right now. I can delineate a list of injuries that are now causing me problems. Hello? But back to the numbers. When I looked at LSU, I decided, well, let me just look at the numbers for states that are ran by Republican governors. And I'm not just saying governors. These schools that I'm going to delineate, their state legislators are all Republican. Some of them have super majorities. Okay? Revenue of top programs in Republican-led states. This is for 2024 and 25. Texas Longhorns, $332 million. Texas A&M Aggies, $266 million. Ohio State Buckeyes, $255 million. Georgia Bulldogs, $242 million. Alabama Crimson Tide, $235 million. Nebraska Cornhuskers, $221 million. LSU Tigers, $220 million. Florida Gators, $200 million. And the Tennessee Volunteers, $234 million. And the majority of that money is generated by black athletes. Now, let me tell you where that money goes. It goes into the school's coffers. It goes into the general fund, where it helps to fund new wings at the college. It helps to fund getting the grass cut. It helps to fund pay for professors. And more importantly, it helps to fund non-revenue generating sports that are predominantly used by white athletes. In a weird sense of a way, you could call this slavery of the new year, or slavery of the new term, or whatever you want to call it. Okay? Slavery by any other name is still slavery. Now, what can you do about it? Because I asked you the question, and I gave you the analogy of worshiping the gods of a beaten enemy. What would happen if those black athletes at LSU and all of these Republican-led states decided that, for instance, if my mama can't vote in your state, then I can't play in your state? What would happen? What would happen if the people at LSU, those young people, decided that, hey, if you would do Calvin Duncan like that, what would you do to me? Hello? Do you have consciousness over character? Do you have consciousness over cash? Do you have the consciousness of your ancestors? That's the question that we need to start asking our young people and demanding an answer from them. Because, by the way, the reason that you're able to earn that money in the NIL today is because of those black freedom riders that came before you. You owe them. You don't owe them cash. You owe them consciousness. So my argument, and I've been making this argument for years now, nobody is listening. Maybe they'll listen now. That if you want to affect what is going on at your state legislatures, then you need to affect their bottom line. The most powerful weapon that was used during the 60s was the economic boycott. By the way, we've seen the effect of that just recently with the boycott of Target. Hello? It works. And who doesn't love football? Who doesn't love basketball? All of those state legislators love it when they can get tickets and go to the game and take their family and friends and their donors. They love cheering for the little black kid running up and down the court or up and down the football field. They just don't want that black kid to grow up and be politically conscious. It's time to stop serving them. You want to stop it? Stop entertaining them. That's how you fix this problem. I'm David W. Coleman. The show is Black Focus Radio. Check it out on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Like, share, and subscribe. But most importantly, it's time to take a stand. It's time to affect their pocketbooks. Let's do it. Habaragani.